Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Dale, the Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Mount Pleasant. I'd like to welcome everyone to our council meeting, our workshop that we'll have here with the commissioners and the judge. And we appreciate the participation also from the citizens that are here. I'll be conducting the meeting in the absence of the mayor. And so at this time, I call the meeting to order, and I think also the judge will have to call your meeting to order. Is that correct?
Yeah, Judge, could you come up here and do it so it's streamed live to all over the world?
Okay, today is the 26th of May, 2022, and it's 3 o'clock, and I've got, looks like everyone present here from the Commissioner's Court. Thanks for allowing us.
Thank you. If you would, at this time, I'll ask everyone to stand, and I'll lead us in a word of prayer, followed by the pledge. Thank you. You can be seated. Okay, at this time, as just for the public, this is a workshop with City Council and the Titus County Commissioners to discuss a proposed county fire contract. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our City Manager, Mr. Ed Thatcher, and let him brief us, and then we'll go to the Fire Chief, Larry McRae, following that.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, Judge and Commissioners. We're grateful to have you here, and we appreciate this opportunity. It's been long coming. What we're going to do, we've asked the Chief McRae to give some history, and without getting too far into the weeds, but we're going to give some history, and then I will make a proposal, and then we can discuss from there. So go ahead, Chief.
All right, so this is just some information on the situation we're in right now with fire protection. Jeremy. Oh, thank you. So this is the map of the county and all the fire districts that are out there. As you can see, Sugar Hill, Talco, the Mount Pleasant district actually goes all the way over to the county line. It includes it doesn't include the city, but just the way this cog map was drawn, it doesn't delineate where the city boundaries are, but everything here in tan is our district. And when Winfield, when Winfield folded up in 2014, Tri-Lakes and Five Star actually kind of came together and tried to cover the district there. It was vacated by Winfield, and with Tri-Lakes being all the way down here in Blodgett, by the time they could get up here to the calls, quite frankly, we were already there on a lot of them. So that went on for a few months. They tried to get members to be members of the Winfield, of the Tri-Lakes Fire Department there in Winfield, and after months and months of Chief Jerry Ward with Tri-Lakes trying to do that, the Winfield Fire Department station that Tri-Lakes was trying to man finally just threw in the towel. That they couldn't get the members. So when that happened, we actually absorbed all that. Tri-Lakes and Five Stars district kind of went back to the way they were, and in Mount Pleasant now absorbed all that area out there. This is a breakdown of calls These are just city incidents. If you see down here at the bottom, totally for 2014 through 2021, there were 8,325 total calls, and of that, 5,327 of those were in the city. You can see the EMS calls and the false alarms, when we compare those to the county, is where the bulk of the calls were. When we break it down to just the significant incidents, which are the ones that are highlighted in yellow, 1,200 of those are covered in the city, which is about 44% of the calls. And then when we look at the time spent on the calls, the significant calls, 37 or almost 38% of the calls are in the city. The hours down here are right there. So when you look at the county incident, again, the total in the county is about 36% of the calls, but of the significant calls, it's about 55% of them. Same thing with the time spent is about 61% of our time is spent on calls in the county. These next tables show where the structure fires are. In this case, most of them are in Cookeville, followed by Mount Pleasant. This is where the grass fires are. And again, these are just calls that Mount Pleasant responds to, which on the structure fires, we respond to almost all the structure fires. There's very few times, I can't remember the last time that we didn't respond to a structure fire because of being tied up somewhere else. But the grass fires, these are just the ones that Mount Pleasant responded to. And when it's saying up here the Mount Pleasant MPFD, that's not in the city. That's just the county district around the city. Doesn't include city calls. These are just calls that we went to out in the county. Same thing for accidents. Most of the accidents occur in the Mount Pleasant County Fire District. Extrications means that's ones we have to go, people are pinned in the vehicles, we have to go extricate them, are mostly in our district as well. This graph basically shows all incidents from 2014, shows that there are obviously more incidents in the city, just as I said a while ago, because mainly of the EMS calls that we make in the city that we do not make out in the county, quite as many. And the same thing with false alarms. We have more alarms inside the city than we do in the county, so that's where that comes from. When you break it down to structure fires, the structure fires were trending upward from 2015 with a downturn in 2019 and 2020, but went up drastically in 2021 for the county stuff. And then from 2016 through 2019, city fires were going down, but went up in 2020 and then back down in 2021. Motor vehicle accidents basically have been going up city and county-wide since 2017. And then the extrications, where we actually have to go get people out, have been going up since 2015, and the county went up 2016, 2018, and went down, but then started back up again, as you can see by the graph. Grass fires, there are always going to be more out in the county. You can kind of see it kind of up and down. It goes with the fire seasons. If the predictions continue the way they are right now, we will far exceed where it was in 2021. Back in February, or maybe it was the end of March, we were at about 400% more grass fires from November till the end of March than we were that time last year out in the county. Overlapping incidents, this is just from December 2020 through April of 22, a 16-month period. And what that is when we're already on one call and at least another call comes in on top of it, which means we may or may not have the resources to go to that. Could be one call in addition to the original call, or it may be a couple. especially back when we were having the wildfires that were burning almost every day, 2 and 3. We had numerous days where we were on more than one call. Luckily, it has been such that the status of the first call allowed us to cut some resources loose and be able to send them to the second call. But you know, the law averages sooner or later is going to catch up where we're not going to have the resources to send. What it says is basically right now 15% of our calls overlap, which right now is out of the 1,468 total calls, 219 of them overlap as on the average. And then our highest was almost 25%, and then there was 1 month where it wasn't too bad at all. So response to county instance, this table here shows what we are required by our contract to send 2 trucks and 4 firefighters. And so for structure fires, we have 5 to 8 or more and 4 pieces of apparatus. It's a command vehicle, the deputy chief in it, an engine with 4 firefighters, then a command vehicle with me and an aide, an air trailer with an operator, and off-duty folks. These down here are, you know, if I'm off duty and it's at night or weekends or holidays, depending on the situation, I may not respond. The air trailer, we depend on basically one of our volunteers to come and get that if he's available. And then the off-duty people, it just depends on who's on duty and who's off duty and whether they're available or not. So it could be none of our off-duty guys show up, or we might have 3 or 4 show up. You know, you can't depend on the ones with the asterisks. You can't depend on that to be able to respond on every call. Vehicle accident, same thing, and grass fires. You can kind of see 6 to 8 people on a vehicle fire and 5 to 8 on a grass fire. Again, depending on who's available, who's not. And again, I would emphasize we can't depend on the ones that are off duty because they may be on vacation, they may be out of town, you know, they're at the kids' ball game. You just can't depend on we depend on the 10 people that are on duty to respond. And again, we don't send everything from the city to the county, we send half of that. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. So response times to structure fires in the county, this is from 2017 through 2021. The National Fire Protection Association, which is the national standard for fire service in the United States, for rural areas, they recommend a 14-minute response time 80% of the time to a structure fire in the county. This is a county-wide graph, and so 90% of the time, a little over, we're there in 15 minutes or less. For Argo, we're there 100, again, for the calls that we've been, is what we're basing these numbers on, the structure fires that we have responded to. How quick we get there. This is just our time, which again, we'll talk about that here in a minute. 15% of the time, the structure fires that we've had to go to in Argo, we got there 100% of the time. Sugar Hill, again, depending on where it is in Sugar Hill, and obviously these were, I'm not sure the exact location of where these were, but it's, we were less than 80%, 15% of the time. Our district, we're there 15% of the, or 100% of the time in 15 minutes. Talco, we're there in 80% of the time. Footwool, 91. Tri-Lakes has been 100%. Nortex has been 86 or 85.6. 5 Star is about 93.3. So in what you said, we went back on this same time frame and went through, and basically 75% of the time for a structure fire, our department arrives before the VFDs do. It's just the way, it's not, that's not saying anything bad about the VFDs, but it's just the way it works. When Mount Pleasant is staffed on duty, all they do is get up, go get in the truck, drive to the fire. Volunteers have to go get up, sometimes get dressed at night, which would be the same for ours. But then they got to drive to the station, get the doors up, get the truck, and then respond. So it's just the nature of the volunteer fire departments, not just here, but everywhere, that there's going to be a delayed response because of that. Building fire codes and false alarms. Like most counties in the state of Texas, there are no building or fire codes out in the county. However, this can create a unsafe, dangerous condition for the occupants as well as the firefighters, when you can pretty much go out here and build anything you want. As example of this house here in Titus County, you may not be able to see it, but they're building a roof over another roof. And when that happens, if the fire is up in this void space, we're down here in this room looking for the fire, so we breach the attic and get into this attic, but then there's another attic above it that we're not able to get to. So not only is it unsafe, it's more difficult to extinguish. It requires more resources and a lot longer time. In fact, we've had a couple of structure fires first part of this year that we were there 3 or 4 hours because of construction just like this. And those whole 3 or 4 hours, we're where we can't respond to anything else in the county. So, false alarms. There are a few locations out in the county that we've had instances where they have had several false alarms. When we go out in the county for a false alarm, takes the engine out of service, and again, we cannot respond to another call in the county. So all the time we're out on those false alarms, it's leaving one engine company in the city and unable to do anything else out in the county. Within the city, we have an ordinance that once you have 4 false alarms, then you get penalized, or you're charged a fee according to our ordinance because of that. So there is a incentive for them to get their alarm where they're not going off false alarms. So, but we don't have that out in the county. And like I said, the vast majority of the counties in Texas do not have fire codes or anything like this. But what I'm just saying is that depletes our resources every time we go to a false alarm. Then our resources are tied up. Building alarms, for they malfunction or somebody pulls it or what have you. So I don't have them with me, but I can get them to you. Yeah, we have a reporting system that we put every time they go to a call, and we can generate pretty much any kind of information you want. So, but I can get that to you. It's not near as many as we do in the county because there's just not that many alarm buildings and homes and stuff with alarm out in the county. So the Countywide Fire Protection Study. In 2016, the city and county went together and funded a study. It was Emergency Services Consulting that did it. They presented 5 options to the county and city on how to move forward, and those are in the next slide. So the first option that they came up with was obviously the jurisdictions could do nothing, but obviously since they asked to have the study done, it's kind of expected that we're trying to improve fire protection. So the second option that they came up with was increase the ranks of the volunteer fire department. And we have tried over the years pretty much everything possible. We have a chiefs meeting once a month, and for years, I don't know, going back probably 4 or 5 years, we've tried pretty much everything to try to recruit volunteer firefighters for the VFDs, from slides out at the picture show. Whenever you go out there to watch a movie, they advertise. We all went together and paid, I don't think, maybe $1,500 for like a 3-month time where they would put that up on the screen. the volunteer departments have, tried fundraisers. They've tried a little bit of everything to try to get members to join, but that just hasn't happened. And it's pretty much, and this is out of the study, all this language is. So most of the reason the volunteers people are not joining volunteer fire department is the personal time that it takes, the increased activity and training requirements that's made for volunteers. When I became a volunteer, it was kind of like, here's your gear, go fight fire. No training, no nothing. It was basically trial by fire. In this day and time, you have to have training to go to the fires and be effective. And then in 2014, like I said, the Winfield Fire Department closed down because they couldn't get members. The other option that they brought up was consolidate all the VFDs into a single department under one organization, which wasn't really any advantage to that, because the ability to get volunteers, whether it's all the departments working independently or together, they're just not gonna, the people are just not there. And pretty much when we go out on calls, we all the VFDs and us operate under the same standard operating procedure on the fire ground at emergency incidents. So it's like when we are on a call, we are pretty much one department now. Each department, what they do at their meetings and fundraisers and all that, that's strictly up to them. But when we're on the fire ground, we pretty much function as one department. The fourth option was provide full-time firefighters to the VFDs, which some counties are doing that, where they are hiring maybe one or two firefighters and putting into volunteer stations. And the chiefs that were in place at that time didn't want any part of that, because obviously one of the things is on that second bullet is once you hire firefighters, now you're regulated by the Texas Commission on Fire Protection. Volunteer fire departments and firefighters can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to have any training. If they don't want to get training, they don't have to get it. But when they start getting paid to do it, that's a whole different ballgame. The commission's going to regulate the training and all the other stuff that goes along with it. The other thing that would have hampered trying to put full-time folks at the VFDs is the stations, for the most part, are not equipped for that. They don't have living facilities or showers or bedrooms or anything like that. So it's been a considerable cost to upgrade those stations to do that. So the fifth option was to provide additional resources to the Mount Pleasant Department. It became apparent the city and county would equally need to enhance our level of fire protection offered in their jurisdiction. There's been a considerable growth in the city and county, as well as increased calls and volume. And so they said basically a third station, more firefighters, where we could have another 4-man engine company, and an engine and brush truck for apparatus would be needed. And this was, again, 6 years ago. It's even more now, more relevant, not more stations or more people. That's relevant right there. The county would benefit from adding additional firefighters and apparatus, because there would be more firefighters and apparatus that would be able to respond to calls in the county. So the recommendations from the study, city and county would mutually benefit if we had a third station and the people and the apparatus for it. They also recommended to review a framework to guide discussions to get to where we need to be, and adopt an equitable fire protection cost sharing formula for the city and the county, develop a timeline from inception to completion for this project, determine and adopt a capital and operational budget necessary to staff and operate the third station, identify financial places to get the money. We did eliminate the lieutenant position. We have 2 stations, and there was a lieutenant at one station and a captain at the other, and essentially they did the same job. And so instead of calling one a lieutenant and a captain, we changed it where they're each station, the company officers are captains now. We did add additional staffing to allow for a deputy chief assigned to each shift, and then we created a driver operator position. That doesn't mean adding people. That was adding a promotional step in the career ladder. So in summary, basically when we go to the county for a structure fire, we only send half the resources that we provide our firefighters to do it in the city. And a lot of times it's going to be worse in the county because the fire has had time to burn longer. We could be running into things just like we showed you with the construction. In the past, we have depended on the VFDs to provide the extra manpower and staffing, train people. But in the past few years, as we said, that has been diminishing to where there's just not the folks trained and responding like they used to. There's many times during the year that the VFDs are not able to respond at all, or there may only be 1 or 2 members that are able to respond. Basically, and creates concern for the safety of our people that are going to fight the fires, and we are not able to provide a safe and efficient response that the people that are calling 911 expect from us. We're just not able to deliver, and it's not safe for them or us either one. There can be times, like I said, there have been where we can't respond because we're already on another call, and so that falls back on the VFDs to have to respond on that by themselves, or there's no response to that call at all. 2014, like I said, Winfield folded up, and right now Sugar Hill is kind of on that same path. They're struggling to try to get members. They're doing everything they can to do that. And just let me say at this point right here, despite what you may have heard out in the county, you've read or heard, Mount Pleasant Fire Department needs the volunteer fire department. We want the volunteer fire department. We have done everything we can to provide the training and everything to get them to be a functional fire department. But they've got to take advantage of that. So, you know, we're doing everything we can to keep the VFD. This is from the summary. Again, 6 years ago, has been proven with the failure and disbanding of the Winfield Fire Department. The future continued service provided by the remainder of the volunteer fire departments is uncertain. Decreasing numbers of personnel and the inability to recruit and train new volunteers for the roster have heavily impacted the ability to respond and to safely initiate and sustain operations. This was our observation 6 years ago, and it's even worse now. Again, the 2016 study recommended additional stations, apparatus, and staffing, and they're even more valid today that we need that. The additional staffing would allow us to send send 2 4-man engine companies and a deputy chief to a structure fire in the county instead of, like I showed you over there, where we'd just be sending 1. It would also give us more people to go to the grass fires and the vehicle accident. Because even though the way the contractors are written right now, the VFDs are responsible for the grass fires and vehicle fires in their district. But on those days when the wind's 20 miles an hour and the RH is down to 10, they're not able to handle those by themselves. So we go again far above what the contract requires us because it's just the right thing to do. So, but it stretches us really thin to do that. All of which I just read here would be better safety for our firefighters, as well as being able to provide a more efficient and effective response that, quite frankly, that's what the people expect when they call 911. They're expecting somebody to come help.
I appreciate, my name's Ed Thatcher, I'm city manager, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the county commissioners court. I've never done this before. least in Titus County. So, and I've got some smiles, so maybe it'll be a friendly thing, but it's not so friendly with the council when I meet with them. So anyway, I'm teasing. We have a proposal with the history that was just given, and we were thinking about this. One of the council members said to me that we've been doing this a long time together, Titus County and the city, and these issues have kind of always been there. It's a process. It's not a snapshot in time. And so what we're proposing today is maybe we don't have a snapshot in time to fix it all. It's like eating an elephant. But we put a contract together that will help us address the issues together. Maybe not always an open commissioners court or open council meeting. We have a group meeting with it, working on it, and then coming back and working on it together. So with that, we propose recognizing that the elephants in the room and the major issues are like I forgot to do this. It doesn't work. Major issues are the county fire study that was done in 2016 that was basically funded by both county and city, and really it's not been implemented. The recommendations haven't been all implemented because the recommendations cost money to implement, a lot of money. The increase in personnel every year or yearly, equipment purchase or replacement, the product of a new station or a recommendation of a new station, the issue with the volunteer departments. Those are things that we need to work out and solve together. And my thought is it's not something we can do all at once in this contract kind of thing, but we should set up a plan to do that. So we propose, or I propose, my council, some of them are seeing this for the first time, propose that we create an advisory board. It would be a county city fire advisory board, if you would. There's an acronym in there somewhere. I'm not sure what that'd be, but there would be 2 from the county commissioners court, could be commissioners or the judge, 2 from the city council, which could be council members or the mayor too, fire chief or fire inspector, me, and then anybody else. I mean, financial, I don't know if that'd be your auditor or who, but somebody that you'd choose, you'd want to be there. And that this advisory board would meet quarterly or as needed, discusses plans for future issues, and those would be those tough issues we talked about. And we don't try to address them all at one time, but we look at what's in front of us, what's the big one in front of us, and we work out a plan, recommend it back to the council and the commission. It also addresses what the budget's going to be next year. You know, with our budget years, October 1 to September 30. And so we get on it early and say, this is kind of what we're looking at spending. So that's our proposal. With that in mind, talk about what we're doing now. The current adopted budget we're in this year, 21-22, is $3.5 million approximately. The county's at 30%, $1,014,000. And the city is at 70% at 2.4, almost 2.5 million. And our proposal is that ultimately we would like to be at a 60-40. We think that is a more fair proposal, that the county pay 40, we pay 60. And it's based on not just all the calls, but the basic premise that we have to have an army, a trained, well-staffed, trained, and the equipment sitting there, whether you use them or not, they've got to be there ever present. And so that would be our recommendation. And we propose that there be some kind of phase in. And for example, this year coming up, 22-23, we do a 66% 34 split. 23-24, we go to 63-37. and 24, 25, we go to 60, 40. Our proposed budget coming up, we're already working on our budget. And based on some firefighters, we are getting ready to hire six about six. We had one, so we're hiring 5 more. You add them 3 at a time for the 3 shifts, those 6. And so our budget is proposed, and that's going to be trued up. So whatever it comes out to be, but that's about the estimate. That's about that would be about a $300,000 increase to what the county's paying now, but that would be based on a 66 to 64% starting this year. Was still time for an advisory board to meet on that and discuss it and work it out. Our thoughts, the city would get an attorney to draft a proposed contract. We give it to the commission to review and council review, and then we work it out and have it approved. We propose however you want to do the length of the term. Are we under a 10-year, Judge? Is it 10 years? Chief? So you may want to do 2 5s or a 10 plus a 5 and another 5, or a 10 or whatever, to be reviewed and discussed again annually or quarterly and so forth, or annually by the advisory board to the county and to the city. Talked about getting ready to hire 6 new. Already hired 3. We're getting ready to hire another 3 this next year. But if it be at all, if you all think that it's at all out there in the future that the county, we've been doing this a long time, so I don't know that I see that, but I've heard that maybe some would think the county should maybe split off and do their own fire department. If that's at all a possibility in any of your all's minds, that you would let us know so that we could do another phase program. It wouldn't be a phase in, but a phase out kind of thing, because we would have to phase out $1 million of our budget. So those are the issues, and that's the proposal that I think. I think that we've got a lot of very complicated issues. We've got a study from 2016 that addresses a lot of things. I think that we need to put our heads together and solve this. And probably as we prioritize these issues, they all have to do with money. It would be over like you get look at the station and more personnel or a replacement of equipment. We do that mostly we bought a pumper truck here 2 or 3 years ago. Y'all paid $300,000. We paid $300,000, bought it. We basically do that. We're starting to do that on a lease purchase basis. So it's in the budget every year that we're paying for it. As we pay for one, then it's time to add another one, kind of thing. So it's kind of a straight line that we do. And so there wouldn't be any big blips like this in the budget. It would mainly be other than inflation, or if you hire personnel. But that's our proposal, and again, the phase-in could be over 5 years if we need to, or whatever. I mean, I showed a 3-year thing, but let me just stop there. Open it up for discussion. The main thing is we put a plan to solve these issues, the station personnel, how we do these things over 5, 10, 15 years, not in like one moment here as we put this contract in place. Are there any questions? Chief, we have not talked to an architect or anything, because really a station in my mind is out quite a bit. As I talked with the chief, pointed out the study said, we kind of need one. And he probably thinks it's in 2 or 3 or 4 years. I'm thinking we can house more firefighters in the current stations we have, up to probably the maximum amount we need. We have about 30 now. We have 33 now. We're going to 36. Probably the ultimum to do everything that we need to do, maybe 45. But we can house them in the two stations we have now. So we don't have to have one in the next few years, is my guess. So it's just inflation. Maybe, I know we built stations in the 90s for $2 million. I'm thinking that's more like 4 or 5 million now, and who knows now with this inflation's going on now. So it would be a capital issue that'd be done, and we'd pay for it over time. That's right. There's no station in there, and really that last budget that added the 6 new guys, 3 we are now, and then 3 more, but it doesn't address any more in the future than that.
Now I lost my train of thought because I was thinking as I was talking. I still personally think, and I think that the majority of the commissioners feel that a joint fire protection effort is still the way to go, with the city providing primary fire protection and the volunteers providing supplemental fire protection as they are able. And if that's a given, that this model is what is the most efficient way to do it, and I think that it is, because it allows you to reduce the total staffing. Instead of having full staff for the county, full staff for the city, you can reduce that number with the assumption that you don't have much in the way of overlapping incidents in the city and the county. And so if we assume that this is the best model, we've got to keep in perspective that fire protection cost is a county-city responsibility. And the question is, how much of this burden are you going to put on the taxpayers within the city limits? They're already paying county taxes in the city. And so we've got, in essence, if the county bears less burden than the city does for county-provided services, you're putting that cost on the taxpayers of the city, and there's an inequity there. And so really what we're talking about doing here is just sharing some more of the load appropriately with folks that are out in the county and that pay county taxes. All the taxpayers, the taxpayers are paying this burden. It's just a matter of who's paying the bulk of it. Is it the city resident that's paying city and county taxes? And at some point that becomes unfair, and I recognize that. And so it's incumbent upon us, I believe, to pay our fair share. I think what you've presented here makes a lot of sense. I like the idea of the quarterly meeting between the two, and that gives an opportunity for the chief to share his concern with somebody more than just coming to my office on a regular basis. And he brings me a wealth of information, but it's difficult to disseminate that information to the entire commissioner's court. So this would keep things fresh at all times so that nobody's surprised by this. I think that your math makes sense. I think that this is a fair proposal. Now, do we need to do it over 3? Do we need to do it over 5? I don't know that that matters that much, but I think that you all have been very, I think you've been very fair with this proposal. That's all I have to say.
Talking about the 60-40 split, it's, early on when we kind of started talking about this, I understand, and not everybody does, but like you said, the city taxpayers are paying county taxes, but the city paying 60% of it. I feel like the extra percentage is due to we obviously get a quicker response times, so we have some advantage there. The county residents, we have to get out to the county, but like the chief says, we get there as quickly as we can, most of the time within 15 minutes. So there is some additional advantage just being in the city with the response times, and that's why I feel like 60-40 is a good split. I think the phase-in gives the commissioners the ability to budget and forecast and look at where we're going. I like the setup of the commission where we sit down and have a conversation with two of us, and the chief and the manager, where we can where y'all have some input as the budget goes on forecasting things that we're looking at, things that we need, because y'all need that as well as we do. So I like it myself. I think it's the best situation. Gives all of us the ability to make plans.
I think it would help the commissioners to be able to see the overall budget. Not that we don't trust the chief, but we need to be able to understand and defend why this costs so much. And if we can look at that budget, I know that there's not going to be anything in there that we go, oh, well, you shouldn't be including that in your budget. But I think it just gives us a better education so that we can in turn educate our constituents as to why on earth are you paying, $1.3 million for, because that's the perception is we've got volunteer fire departments take care of us. We don't need to pay that much to the city. And so that's what we've attempted to do over the last several months, is give some real life data to back this up so that folks do understand the limitations of the volunteers and how much we've always relied heavily on the city, but we're becoming more and more reliant.
I'll just add, I was on the fire committee that was formed back there in 2016, I believe, and I was probably, without a doubt, the weakest link on there with no fire background. I had to listen and learn, and I think I what you call I got it. Okay. I think the transparency, like Brian's saying there, I think with our budget, and we sit down, and I thought the idea of the county and the city, we've got to all work together. I mean, we're working for the same citizens. We all know each other. It's a deal where we can all sit down, I think, 2 on 2, and be able to go back to our fellow council or commissioners and know that we're doing what's best for the citizens in the county. And we want everyone to have the best fire protection. It's kind of like insurance. It's not worth a darn until you need it. Until you need them to come out for something. It's your loved one or your home or your business, then it hits home that they can't get there quick enough. And I don't see any reason why we can't sit down and I've looked at this in depth. I've been in meetings all along on this prior to our meeting here over the last weeks and months. And I don't see any reason why we can't. I think this is a fair assessment also of what we need to do. I feel comfortable with it, just throwing my opinion out to you. A lot of you know me, or all of you know me, and I feel comfortable with it. And I think we can work going forward and get good fire protection for all the citizens and do it effectively and efficiently as we can.
And once again, I want to reiterate, Chief, we are not looking to do away with the volunteers at all. We're not asking y'all to do that. We need the volunteers, but the fact is if we can continue to provide the services we're providing, it just costs more to do that every year, and that's just part of it. But we want to provide the services to the citizens in the county as well as us, but we just need to get to a better shake in the percentage.
With the fire study there in 2016, that was a big question I had, is why, and are we losing the volunteer firemen? why are they not, and it's not just here. It's not just here in Titus County. It's nationwide volunteerism, and everything from clubs, organizations to, you name it, it has fell off, okay? And people just don't have the time. I think is number one. They just not as interested. Somebody else can do it, and the volunteer fire departments are critical. I'll just say what my fellow council member Adam said. We need them. You need them. The citizens in the county need them. So anyone that wants to be and I understand the training aspect as of being on that committee. How someone like me, not knowing anything, just throw me out there and say, "Here, Tim, fight that fire." Are you kidding? What do I do first? So you have to have some training. And but does any of the commissioners have anything they'd like to add or say? Feel free to.
Hold it.
Hold it while you talk? Okay.
Yeah, tell us your name.
John Fitch, Commissioner Precinct 2. I like the plan, and we always work good together. I feel like we're one all the time, really, because it's so easy to work with you. I think it's real fair, because we've been kicking figures around. I like the committee thing that we're going to do, where we'll know more instead of the end of the year every year, what's going on. And we all know this. We got a lot of growth that's going to go on in the county, and so it's going to change as we go. So working together and having these meetings is going to help that. And another question we've been talking about this all week. When will be the next time we need to lease an engine? What is that, a 5-year, a 6-year, a 10-year, what?
Right now, even if we can put the state down,
Oh, yeah.
we get all the buildings, even if the state.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know if it was ever 5 years or what.
Yeah,
so.
we're working on it. The truck, the pumper's good, usually around 20 years. You get down 15 to 20. So, and we bought one in 16 or 15 with y'all. And then we bought another one in 19 because they wore out. We want to get to having them last so that when you buy one and then 5 years later you buy another one and 5 years later. We want to try to get them on a 5-year plan. So we're working toward
those
that.
meetings will help know when that's
Yes,
happening.
sir. Yes, sir. You'd be involved.
Another thing y'all may be interested, we kick this around. It may be we have 2 years to implement the ARPA funds, and then we have to spend it sometime in 25. I mean, it's 3 years from now. We can use maybe some of our ARPA funds to help keep our tax, using our tax dollars. We can use that ARPA. So just brought that up. So thank y'all.
Well, I agree with, like Commissioner Fitch said, our county has grown so much over the last few years, even from 2016 when we did this study, and that was an issue then, how fast it was growing. What used to be a 10-acre pasture out there now may have 5 houses on it, and it's growing rapidly, as y'all know. And naturally, when you're stretching that rubber band for fire protection, it requires more resources to give adequate service.
No. It would.
We'll let them ride on the engines we got. We picked up an extra firefighter. That's why we're hiring 2 now. This last year we picked up an extra one, and you usually hire them in 3s because you got 3 shifts. So we got 1 floater that's kind of helping fill in. We added 2 this summer, so now there's 1 on each shift, and we get 3 next year. We put it. And we need that. And by the way, the reason that if we get that committee together, you'll see that we're spending in excess of $400,000 a year on overtime. These 6 people will, that'll pay for that, and it'll bring it down, not eliminate it, but bring it down. It should be a wash in our budget. Well, close to a wash.
I'd just like to say that I appreciate the city manager and chief and the council with the work that they've put into this proposal. I think it's a fair proposal, and I've been involved with the volunteer departments now ever since we started them back in the 90s, and I don't want to see them go. I'm a member at Nortex now still, and we have got some younger guys that we're trying to get up and going out there, and to take some of our older guys' place, and 'cause we can't do what we used to do. And I just want to tell y'all that I appreciate what y'all done.
I've been thinking about how to go about doing this, but I would like to integrate into a meeting like this advisory council with maybe a couple of one or two of our volunteer chiefs. I feel like there's a disconnect between the volunteer department and even the commission. But if they could have regular representation on that advisory board, I know you're getting it bigger and bigger here, but rather than us making decisions that always impact them, maybe they hear it second, third hand, let them have their elected two representatives on that advisory. They're part of the decision. And then, this is just an idea Steve and I have talked about. It's tougher and tougher to be a volunteer fireman. That there's more and more training demands put on you. There's more and more equipment demands. There's more and more uniform and equipment that you wear demands. And as we move forward, maybe the role of a volunteer fireman takes on a different look. Maybe instead of being a volunteer that feels like he has to have a full gear, he has to have an adequate truck, he has to be trained in structural fire, et cetera, it becomes overwhelming. And maybe there's a way to change the definition of what does a volunteer fireman or a volunteer fire department look like. And maybe we identify what is the absolute best use of your time as a volunteer fireman, and maybe it takes on a different shape. And I don't want to say they're nothing but water haulers, but water hauling is an extremely important role, and it takes a whole lot less training to bring a water truck to a fire. And maybe you could attract some more volunteers if you were to reduce the scope of their responsibility and still have just as effective of a team on the scene of a fire, but yet relieve some of that burden on a volunteer fireman. I don't know, maybe I'm way off. This is just me thinking, and I've never participated in one fire in my whole life. But I want to make it as easy as we can on our volunteer firemen, our volunteer fire departments. I don't want to burden them with any more than is necessary. And if there's anyway, this would give them a chance to voice an opinion there and to be part of the decision-making process, so that we're truly an integrated team and not city versus county.
Judge-elect Cooper, you have anything you'd like to say? You got to do it up here, though.
Thank you, Ken Cooper. As Brian was saying, I don't know if those are state requirements that you're talking about or just some local. I don't know what, when you're saying requirements and what they've got to do as far as the volunteer fire department. When some people started, as Jimmy started, they were thrown to the fire to go after it. Our volunteer fire department are there to help us and to assist in, for lack of a better word, when the big boys get there, let them take over, because that's what they're trained and to do. And so I'm assuming you're talking about local, that you're wanting them. I don't know what the requirements are, is what I'm asking on that. No state requirements on it.
Chiefs years ago that are teaching today, our volunteer firemen have training, whatever they want to do.
Right.
Tell what to do. You always want to be a water tanker driver, we train you
The only thing about that is out in the county, in your response time, I was talking to a gentleman that, they had to bring his wife got hit by a cow out there, and some of the volunteer fire department got there. Didn't do anything for his wife other than to keep him calm and not to lose his mind before they could get there and get her air flighted out of there. So there is jobs for all of them, is what I'm saying. And I do like the proposal with the council with moving it up and over a 3 to 5 year period instead of just pounding us at one time with it. I feel like we can work with that, but I do want representation for our county there, which is what y'all are talking about, and then that way we're sitting at the table as well. I'm not disputing anything that you need, but when you walk in and say it was 1.3 million last year, well, it's going to be 1.5. At least we can say, hey, this is why it is that, instead of us just sitting there going, well, wow, what hit us? They spent what they wanted to, and we're out for 40% of it, and there's nothing we can really do about it. But if we got representation with some of the commissioners or myself, then we feel a lot more comfortable.
The transparency will be a must for both parties.
Yeah, in reference to what the judge is talking about, the training's essential, because if we have people that show up that are not trained, they can do things that can really harm our volunteer firefighters. So, even knowing what to do and what not to do. For example, a few years ago, we had a volunteer, it's a number of years ago, really. We had a volunteer thought the best thing you could do is knock all the windows out of the house before we got there. All that does is burn the house down, because you're letting air into the fire. So, if they get there first, if they understand fire behavior, which is not too hard to understand, is if the door's open, close it, shuts the air off. So, having a basic understanding of what's going on in the fire ground, whether you go inside the house or not, it will help us out. Again, like I said, as Kent said, if they got there first, there's things they can do. Give us a size up. What do you see? Because if we get dispatched just to the house on fire, does that mean it's one room that's on fire? Does that mean there's fire coming out of the attic? Is it coming out of every window? So if a volunteer gets there and we train them at least how to give a size up, we know what we're coming to. Or if they get there and say, there's nothing showing, because if Marcus is driving from Cookville to Tri-Lakes at 5 something a gallon now, we don't want him to drive all the way to Tri-Lakes just to turn around and send him home. So being able to have somebody there and say, hey, there's really nothing showing, we can tell all the county folks, hey, just stop where you're at, let us evaluate it. We don't need you, we'll send you home, save their gas bill. Because I know that's becoming an issue with the VFDs of having to spend the money. So, we'll train the VFDs just like we do now. We have a Dropbox account that they can do online training. They can pick what they want trained. They can sit at home on the couch, do their training there, say, hey, I've got it. It's like online training, any other class you've ever taken. You get your lessons done, call us, we'll do your skills, and we'll give you a written test, check you off on that. So,
Chief, for the public, could you, we provide that training to the volunteers free of charge, so what the county puts in and what we put in is paying for that training. So correct.
Correct. It's no cost to the VFDs. Our guys we have state certified instructors. We've done it, we've done the fire academy at the college for 20 years. We'll go to the stations to train them. They can come to our station. Like I said, the online is there. So there's training there available. It's just, they have to take advantage of it.
There's so much that these volunteers can do. In the county, everyone's knows each other, probably more so than even within the city. They're kin to each other, and I can see where emotions could run real high. All of a sudden, a volunteer get there and not know what to do, and it's an aunt or a cousin or a family member or a neighbor, and but there's so much they can do in console and keeping maybe someone else from running back in the house. My dad's in there or a dog's in there or whatever. There's just so much that they can do, and maybe with more training, like Brian said, I'll agree. Maybe on what their role needs to be going forward. Does it need to be stepped down a little bit? But there's so much, and they're they're needed. I mean, I just can't explain to you how much I think they're needed in the county for all the citizens.
Sherry Spruill. Brevity is the soul of wit, and I don't have a lot of wit. I'm not very brief sometimes. I'll try to simplify it. I do have a question. Liability. Are firefighters, professional and volunteer, indemnified when they're fighting a fire, working a wreck, whatever, responding to a call? What kind of liability is on the individual and the city or the county? Do you understand what I'm asking? In case, someone perishes in a fire, I'm just making an example, and they say, but you didn't do this, or you weren't trained, or you weren't this or that. Can you address a little of that, please, Chief?
I'm glad you brought that up, because again, going back to the training, when in our contract right now, it says, when Mount Pleasant arrives on scene, we're responsible for command, except for the Talco Fire District, which they have their own contract with the county. But when our folks are there and we're responsible for command, then we're responsible for what goes really good and what goes really bad. So again, if we have people that are there, in fact, I'll tell you, after we had an incident last year, I sent an email to all of our chiefs and said, don't send people to calls that they're not trained for, because we do not, as a command staff with our folks, we don't have enough people there to watch people that aren't trained. I understand they're there, they wanted to help, but what you tried to do to help hindered. So again, it's our responsibility, whoever's in command, whether it's me or one of the deputy chiefs or a captain, that if we basically allow it to happen, then yeah, we have some liability for us. I mean, it can come back on us. So again, that's why we need people that are trained to come to the call, so that we know if we give them assignment. In fact, we told all the all the VFDs that, hey, if you're there and you are given an assignment and you're not trained for it, it's your responsibility to say, hey, I don't know how to do what you're asking me to do. I'm not trained to go in and fight a fire. Because they might be wearing bunker gear just like all the rest of it, and they look like a firefighter, but again, they're not trained, so it's on them too to say, hey, I'm not trained to do that. So that's why we want people to be trained, is so we don't have that problem come back.
And then another issue that, and that's, I'm sure there's a lot more depth to that, but when you're looking at these long-term contracts and the amount of money from both sides, the amount of money being paid by the county portion versus the city, I hope that you're careful, or we're careful, whoever's in charge, whoever's sitting here at that time. I hope the entities are careful to consider that we need a real, not just a let's see what happens. We're talking about some major investments to grow as needed for coverage with professionals, and then all of a sudden the county, it just says, no, we're pulling out, and then the city has committed to these longer term commitments, and bought equipment and hired people and maybe built buildings, and so there needs to be a little, I don't know how you address that, but you've got to be a little careful. Make sure you go in with your eyes wide open into a 3, 5, 10-year contract, because there's a lot of money on both sides, and so you need to. I don't know how you get there, but I think you need to look more than just 1 year at a time, because you're going to have to commit to a long term to make it work for both sides, I think.
My name is Dana Applewhite, Commissioner of Titus County Precinct 3. Sometimes the volunteers can bring water bottle, something to drink, a Gatorade to these firemen, and you really can't run them off. And, that's volunteers. I know they got to be some trained, but there's some volunteers that they just stop by and say, I need to help. You can't run a bottle, somebody handing you water away. You know, I just don't think that's right. And like I said, I'd like to see everybody get along and do the right thing, help each other out, don't ridicule. But, hey, regardless of what you think, hey, they're volunteers. That's what we pay them for.
Anyone else? The audience, any participation from the, anyone has anything to add or? Go ahead, Councilman. I think Councilman Sproul has something.
I'm sorry, I had one more question, I just overlooked it. We're also looking for a new city manager starting in about 30 minutes. If y'all want to work on that with us. I'm playing. How many calls, legit calls, were unattended? Do you have any numbers on that?
We don't have as many where we didn't make the call or we were tied up as we do VFDs not being able to make the call for whatever reason. Like I said, they're volunteers. They're not available. They're not going to make the call. And we've had that. Some departments more than others that just don't make the call. I'd have to go back and look, but it's very few. Very few. I know during the grass fires back first part of the year, there were a few times that we had to send one of the VFDs because we were tied up. Yeah. But to structure fire, I don't, Danny, you remember any? We didn't go to structure fire or wreck or. Yeah. Just, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, just barely finished, maybe just finished extricating the patient out of the car and we get another fire or something and we're able to just drop what we're doing and go.
Okay, anyone else?
I just would like to say, first of all, Mr. Thatcher, we thank you for putting together the presentation, as well as the commissioners for being here today. And ultimately, we must realize that we are all here, and everybody has a part to play, whether it's the city or the county. And ultimately, we're the same people, and we represent the city. And we want what's the best for Titus County. Many times, I think we might not have had as many meetings together as a group as we've had today, but it probably should have taken place way before now. And I do recommend that we continue to have these type of meetings because all of us represent Mount Pleasant, Titus County, Texas.
I talked to Mr. Thatcher before we came out, and that's what I told him. That we've had this contract and we kind of went on and on and on. And now we actually get an opportunity to clean it up. And I'm proud to be part of the bunch that cleans it up. And we go forward from here. I think we're making a step for the city and county that all of us should be proud of. Thank y'all very much for being here today.
Okay, if no one else, I'll just wrap it up by saying again, thank you for being here, council members, judge, commissioners. I look forward to us working together on this and any other issues that might arise and the new judge. We appreciate the audience, everyone here and the ones that are watching that will be watching it. Sure, go ahead.
So in summary, I think we will go forward and possibly talk to the judge about having that committee. We'll have somebody start drafting a contract, but maybe we should create this committee before this contract's approved so we can start working on that together. So we'll step forward and start doing it. I'll call you and we can start putting a group together.
I'd recommend that Mr. Dale and Mr. Adams be the two from the city council.
I second the motion.
I thought you were supposed, whoever's not here is supposed to be able to, you're supposed to nominate them. I thought that was the process.
Maybe we'll keep that project as one of the big elephants in the room, and we'll let the committee appoint whoever they want on there.
Thank you, Mr. Thatcher. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. Again, we'll look forward to working. Hopefully, in just the next few weeks, we'll be getting together and on a meeting with the judge and the commissioners on this advisory board and the VFD chiefs. So at this time, I will adjourn our meeting for the city council. Do you need to adjourn?